People ask the question, why doesn't God do any more open miracles? Right? Or why aren't there open miracles? Or why is it not so easy to prove the existence of God or the truth of Torah? And the answer you often hear is because it was so obvious to believe in God, there wouldn't be any challenge in belief in God. Okay? In other words, and then, if there was no challenge to belief in God, there would be no free choice. Right? So the attitude is that we exist without absolute proofs of God, and we exist with a sort of fuzziness because of free choice. Now, I want to say it clearly, I think that's baloney. I think that the things I just said are real baloney. Really not really solid Jewish thinking. But this is what I've heard. This is what I've seen people say. This is what I've seen people argue. Because of the necessity of free choice, it can't be so black and white that God exists and that Torah is correct. Because there has to be an opportunity for free choice. Right? Okay, and it sounded interesting because it's a nice little argument. Right? Okay. Because let's face it, everyone says, listen, it was absolutely clear. God told you, don't eat a Big Mac. Who would eat a Big Mac? Are you crazy? Right? The fact is, so the only reason you can eat a Big Mac is because, it's not so 100%, that you can convince yourself that it's not true. Okay? Nice. Okay, so what does anyone think about that argument? Someone want to think about that argument? I just told you, I think it's baloney. What do you guys think? No one's going to venture a statement here. Okay. The reason I don't think that it is an acceptable perception within Torah is because of a simple concept. Okay, a concept called hasra. For someone to be punished in a Jewish court, okay, the person has to be warned, has to be told by two eyewitnesses. It's God forbids you to eat that Big Mac, and the Torah says Torah, right, which means God says it's forbidden for you to eat that Big Mac, and the person says Afal Pikain, I know, but I'm still going to eat that Big Mac. That person can be punished in the Jewish courts. However, the person just keeps quiet. The person says, I don't believe it. Ignorance of the law is an excuse in the Jewish courts. Okay? Ignorance of the law is a defense. Okay? Now, let me put a caveat on this. Okay? The fact is that there's a point that if that's true, the guy can go around murdering and just keep it quiet. Remember, if he doesn't say, I don't know, if he doesn't say anything, right, he has to say, even so, I'm going to do it, but he keeps quiet, he can go around murdering people. So the fact is the Rambam points this out, and it's clearly supported, he has support from the Gemara, so the Rambam says emphatically that matters that dealt with law and order, there was a supplementary code that ensured that which was necessary for law and order took place. First of all, there was actually two of them. One was called the Beis Din HaMelech. The king had his own court. There was a Sanhedrin in the courts through the process of Sanhedrin, the judiciary. But the king, who was the executive power, also had judicial powers when it came down to law and order. I think we mentioned this before. That's why Shlomo Melech could intervene in the case with the baby. Right? The two mothers said that this is their one baby. He was the king, and the king had some aspects of judgment, and specifically to maintain law and order. So the Rambam points out this was also an auxiliary power to the regular courts. So if someone got off in a technicality, he didn't have Hasra, but you don't let that guy go back on the streets. right? Why? Because of law and order. There's a concept of law and order. But the Rambam says explicitly. But let's say the person the case is Shabbos. The person's on trial for Chilul Shabbos, or even on trial for idolatry. Then the technical rules apply. You didn't give him a straw, he's totally innocent. You didn't warn him, he's totally innocent. It's a remarkable statement of the Rambam, obviously based on Gemara. And there's one caveat to that, though, in terms of the Chilul Shabbos. If the person is corrupting the society, which means he's not just doing Machal Shabbos, but he's going around promoting Chilul Shabbos and doing that, then the emergency power can kick in that case also. Okay? But the fact is, ignorance of law is an excuse for the Jewish law, and the Rambam takes it further. He says a Tinuk Shenishba, the classic case Tinuk Shenishba. If a person wasn't brought up correctly, and so forth and so forth, he's considered to be a Tinuk Shenishba, is not considered to be a heretic, a technical, a culpable heretic. By the way, I should point out, I think the Sridei Eish, I saw this in the Sridei Eish of Hil Yaakov Weinberg, but the fact that I think he refers to the Rosh, he says that the Rosh says that, everyone looks at these heavy punishments, Chilul Shabbos and stuff like that. It says, like, if you're Machal Shabbos, you get stoned. It says, you understand, the Rosh says emphatically, he says, listen, what do you really have to do to get stoned? You have to say, hey, I know God said not to do it, forget it, I'm still going to do it. He says, basically, he says, listen, he's not being killed for Chilul Shabbos. He's being killed because he is blaspheming God. Not just blaspheming God, he's inherently challenging God. Don't forget, he has to believe in God. He's not saying, I don't believe it. I believe in God, but I don't care what he says. That is the evil over here. Okay? That's why when a lot of people look to the punishments in the Jewish law, but it drives me crazy, for example, when I read people referring to halacha and comparing it to the fanatical Muslims and say, hey, they killed this person, they killed that person, there's an adulteress. I'm reading in Saudi Arabia, there's adulteress or whipped, or Iran or Iraq, whatever, or Afghanistan, there's adulteress whipped, and there's this one killed, and that one killed, this woman's beheaded, that guy over there is, this woman's, I think I read a woman being headed for witchcraft, and so forth and so forth. You have to understand that in Torah, the person really says, I know God said not to do it, I'm still going to do it. That's what leads the aspect of punishment. Now, this leads to a significant result. Okay? What leads to punishment is the fact that, but Bush is asking what leads to punishment. It leads to punishment who says, I don't care what God says. Okay? Okay? Okay, so Alex says, for someone who thinks it's terrible to stone someone, how is being killed for blaspheming more understandable than being killed for violating Shabbos? That's a good point, because I'm not expressing it correctly. It's not simply a person blasphemes. That's not the point. The fact is let's deal with the issue of capital punishment. Well, I don't really want to get into the capital punishment, but the fact is that Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Tarfon both said they would never killed anyone. There is some tension. It says on the books that there's a capital punishment for certain things, death, but Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Kiva said they would never have done it. The Mishnah and Makos, where they're quoted, basically says it happened very rarely. But the point is, what the Rosh is adding is what really is where the idea of capital punishment. Okay? And the fact is, it's not on an act. See, even the word blaspheming, it seems to be very, why would you kill someone for blaspheming someone? It's not that. It's the amount of, it's understanding the true nature of this evil. See, one of the things that people are saying, what is really good and evil? So most people look at evil as, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right? People look at a lot of evil is basically giving into your taivas, giving into your drives. What No, that's what I'm trying to say. Babushka asked a question, could we really be critical of Muslims who do kill for blasphemy? Then it's different than Muslim blasphemy. Okay, that's why I'm trying to find the right term. Let me explain it again. It's not just blasphemy. It's not that. It's a person saying, I believe that God told me this. I believe that God said, don't eat this piece of pork. Okay? And you're warning me, okay? Okay? That you're warning me not to do it. Right? And I say, I know exactly that I'm not supposed to do it. I know exactly that this is the wrong thing to do. Okay? Okay? However, I'm still going to do it. Totally believing that God told me to do it. See, this is where it really gets interesting in terms of what Bechira is. And the truth is, Babushka, maybe I'm missing something with this. Because you're saying something, okay, you're saying something about Islam, and I shouldn't really compare it to Islam, but my understanding is you have to understand something. If a person says, I don't believe, let's put it in this terms. If you want to put it in Muslim terms, if a person says something against Muhammad, and you sit there and say, you're not allowed to say something against Muhammad, the guy says, I don't believe that it's wrong to say something against Muhammad. Will he be exempt from punishment? Well, okay. If you don't think it's wrong, what's the difference? No. To be punishable in Jewish law, you have to basically say, I know this is against the law. I know God said not to do it. I'm still going to do it. You understand that the concept, and that's why the greatest evil that ever existed is Amalek. What did Amalek do? And this is why I don't like the statement where we started off on this idea of free choice. Free choice is not, oh, I don't know, so therefore, because I have a drive, a taiva for something. So because I have a drive and a taiva for something, okay. Babushka, that's the question we're going to get to. Okay? Okay? Okay, you're getting to it. Okay? Alex says, but why would anyone do it if they know that it is wrong to do it? And Babushka says, why would someone know God said this and then choose to do the opposite? That's exactly what Bechira is about. See, the fact is, what bothers me so much is that people focus on drives. The drives. I have a drive for something. Okay, I want sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I want pleasure, and so forth and so forth. So when I run into God telling me I can't have this pleasure, I'm going to use everything in my mind to, and it was so obvious that God said it to me, I would control my pleasure. So people saying the only way that you'll give into your pleasure if somehow you think God didn't tell you that. Therefore, God couldn't have told you to so clearly. And the fact that God told you could not be so definite, because otherwise you wouldn't have free choice. Because you would never give in to your drives if you know God actually said it. And that's a mistake. To truly understand evil, let's go back to Amalek. To truly understand evil, you have to understand what Amalek saw. And the fact is if you're going to buy the Chumash presentation, you have to understand what they saw. They saw this nation leave Egypt miraculously. Okay? 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 Okay, let's hold back for a sec. Let's hold back for a sec. Okay, let's hold back on writing things. Just listen to this. Amalek, they see everything. Okay? They see Kriyas Yam Suf. They see a nation walking in a desert, 600,000 men strong. Okay? With an Oneh HaKovod all around them. Okay? Protected by these divine clouds. With man falling from heaven. Or not falling from heaven, but they're picking up this man, okay, miraculous food all around them. And this nation of Amalek says, hey, let's attack them. Hey, excuse me, do you not see what this nation did? do you not recognize the miraculous nature of this nation? They just walked out of Egypt. And the Gemara says everyone in the world saw the miracles. It was a special nation. Everyone in the world saw the miracle. Everyone knew about it. Even Rachav, 40 years later, says to the spies, "Hey, we all heard what happened to you guys. Got out of Egypt, and we all hear what happened over here, and we know what's happening. But they all know what's happening. But Yericho is still sitting there and saying, "Hey, we're gonna take them on. We're gonna make sure we have nothing to do with them." But Amalek, it's even worse. Amalek goes and fights them. We're gonna fight them. Okay? Hey, listen, you not get the memo? Are you crazy? So what's that evil? Okay? Okay? Okay, what's that evil? But Bushka, let me read your point. Would breaking the laws then, not keeping the laws, be a form of blasphemy because you are not doing it even though you know God said to do it? Or am I missing the point? The fact of the matter is, I'm not sure what you're saying. What you're saying is I'm not doing it, or no. What I'm saying is, if you do it, you're doing it even though God said not to do it. You're not just doing it like a person saying, "Hey, I'm eating this Big Mac because I don't believe God ever told me not to eat this Big Mac." And the reason that I can come to that conclusion that God never told me to really do it, and that's why you have this fuzzy picture of truth. And that's why we talk about belief not being absolute. It's not a Torah perspective, from my perception. Breaking the law in Torah is I know exactly that God said not to do this. I'm still going to do it. That's rishus. Okay? So Alex is asking, what if Amalek didn't see what the Jews saw? And if he did, why on earth would they still choose to attack the Jews? Are they plainly stupid? Now okay? That would be stupid, wouldn't it? Right. Okay? Okay. So the fact is, okay, Vita says, I'm glad I don't know too much of Jewish law, so I can't be accountable for much. Yeah, but then there's also the fact is whether you should know more Jewish law. The truth is that's why in the end, who really makes the cheshbonah? Who really is the ultimate judge? Only God, because only God knows how much you really didn't know or did know, or how much you should have known. God has to. God is the only one who can really evaluate what you're doing. The fact is that you don't know too much Jewish law, so you can't be accountable. The truth is that we have a concept like that in halacha. Okay, there are certain times where the halacha says mutav liot shogegim ve'al tiyeh mezidim. The statement is said that about certain laws, that a certain law is there's a certain halacha, and there's an assumption that says, listen, if we broadcast this law, most people will still just ignore it. Okay, it'd be too much for them. They won't have such a great feeling about it, and so forth and so forth. So better to be shogegim, better for them not to know the law and violate b'shogeg, negligently, unintentionally. Maybe they should have learned, but so forth. Than being mezidin, than doing it intentionally. This aspect of knowledge is very significant. Now, this leads to a perception of what's this evil. Okay, Alex asked the question, why would they do it? That's exactly the point. Why would they do it? Because only on that question can you really understand what evil is about. You really understand what the challenge of evil is really about. Right? And the truth is part of a reason people do is because they're driven. Okay, we have drives. So that's called an aver l'tayavon. A violation because someone is driven, drives, right? He just can't control himself. Okay, so but there's a much more intense level of evil. That's called an aver l'chachas, sin, just to get back. The fact is that there's a tension of existence. Now, I believe a lot of it has to do with the inherent dualistic nature of man. Okay, 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 but okay. A person has to believe in the inherent nature of man, and the dualistic nature of man. That is, that man is both a servant of God and also in the image of God. Being in the image of God means man is a decision maker. So man wants to exercise his own will, but at the same point in time, man was created to exercise his own will. He was created b'tselem Elokim. He was created with the idea that your job is to emulate God, and emulation of God means the presentation of your own will. On the other hand, you were also created as a servant of God. Servant of God means you must be subservient to the will of God. So what it comes down to is that duality creates a tremendous tension in man, and our issue is trying to reconcile that duality. That's what life is about for the Jew. And the whole issue of what we call free choice, you have to understand it's the unique aspect of that duality. So you can ask the question, does God have free choice? Well, what do you mean by free choice? Does God have free choice? Well, can God act contrary to His will? Of course not. Okay, because God and His will are one. The point is that it's not that God weighs two choices. God is an independent being who can who does what He wants. But when you think in terms of God's will, it's not the fact that God can say, do I want the cherry or the vanilla? That's not what it means. It means that I'm not a computer program. I can exercise my own will. I decide for myself. But then there's a tension. The tension between I exercise for myself and I have to follow the will of God. And both are parts of my being. That's a tension. And it's that tension that exists something where man really has this unique Bechira Hafshid, where it's almost like cherry or vanilla, that I don't know how to reconcile these two. So it seems I'm always being torn between these two objectives of my existence. And what's the ultimate objective? Somehow to reconcile that. Okay? Let me just read what Alex wrote over here, a few points here. For that to work, one has to believe that the law is God's law, right? Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense. So what if I know that the law forbids something clearly, but I have my doubts about whether the prohibition is of divine origin? Absolutely true. It's not just the fact the law says. You have to know that God said not to do it. Okay? 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 So, Babushka says, what if someone loses a child, God forbid, and is angry with God and rebels deliberately? That's exactly the problem. So you're trying to say, hey, sometimes this is deliberate, so therefore we understand the human condition a little bit. But the fact is that then the issue is being angry with God and rebelling deliberately. And that kind of person might say, hey, specifically, but if you think about it, does that make any sense? Okay? You lose a child, basically you rebel against God. Doesn't there something to it that says that what are you doing with that? You're basically challenging the very essence of who God is. Because God is a Tova Native. So in being angry at God or challenging God on a certain level, you have some issues with that. Okay? Now, I started all with this because I wanted to challenge the concept of belief. See, what I'm doing here is that there's a perspective in our world about belief and things of that nature, and belief is really attacked so much, let's say by Freud, by others, because basically it's ethereal. Okay? Okay? Okay, you know, the fact is Babushka, I mean, how would a court look at it? The fact is that there's always a matter of having a little bit of consideration and rachlim. And there's always an aspect where there's ways of working with that. But I think what would happen is, I can't say exactly, but the truth is that you would not see that person as really that personification of evil. Because what really is this evil? That aspect of evil is throwing off any kind of acceptance of God's overriding nature. See, most people get angry like that. The truth is that you take after the Holocaust. people they don't really rebel against God by saying they're angry with God and knowing I know God who's a tova meitiv and good and I'm angry at him. Okay, I think what happens usually is people just say I don't believe in this anymore. I just can't take this anymore. They basically deny the existence of the Torah God, because the Torah God is a tova meitiv, the good and the giver of good. Okay, so let me just go on with this perspective in terms of belief. See, so many people focus on belief in religion. That's what religion. See, that really comes from a Christian concept. They're so focused on belief, because in Christianity everything is about belief. Everything is about belief, right? You believe in this, you get heaven. You don't believe in it, you go to hell. That's the whole game, right? If you believe, you're okay. If you don't believe, you're not okay. And how do you believe, right? How do you believe? No, Dave, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by unbelief. It's just as important as belief. My understanding is that that's a choice. But the choice is, if you believe, it's good. If you don't believe, it's evil. Right? That's really the choice. Okay? The fact is that perception of belief from a Jewish perspective is incorrect. Belief is not the final result. Okay, we can't believe in everything. That's true. We can't believe in everything, so you have to make decisions. But the point is, belief is my understanding of what belief is I'm making a decision through this feeling of belief. It's not rational. It's not It's in fact, if you take the early church father who said that I believe because it's absurd, it's even the greatness of belief is the very fact that it challenges rationalism. The point is that you talk about belief as a fact that, hey, if you believe, you're okay. If you're not a believer, you're not okay. If you believe in this, okay. If you believe in let's say, believe in this deity, you're okay. If you don't believe in this deity, you're going to hell. The point is that perspective says everything is unbelief, and if you look at it, it's all something about either you feel it or you don't feel it. There's no challenge. There's no education. There's no that. It's either you get it or you don't get it. And somehow they say, and if you get it, if you're a good person, and if you don't get it, it means you're a bad person. And what's the proof that you're a bad person? Because you don't get it. And then people go further, and really you do get it, but you're denying it. All these nice statements about what's going through your head. What does Torah say? So the fact is the word emunah in halacha is not exactly sorah, okay, of belief. Yes, it's an extreme simplification of Christianity. Of course, I'm simplifying these things as I'm trying to point out this aspect of belief, because I want to get to what I think is a Jewish concept, which is a little bit different. See, in a Jewish concept, what is belief? So the truth is that Torah doesn't begin with belief. That's not the point. Torah begins with reality. What's the reality? And what are the consequences of your acceptance of reality? Now, how do you go about figuring out what is reality? Use your mind. There's rationalism. And the Rambam says there's also aspects of tradition. There's this, that. How do you make decisions of truth? It's really a question of epistemology. And then you throw in the Kuzari's perception, okay, where the Kuzari basically says there's something in our neshama that can feel the truth, or has a sense of truth. It basically means that belief may be a spiritual sense that tells me something is true. But that spiritual sense, like every one of our senses, still has to be subject to rational analysis. And how do we know it's true or not? Maybe it's just some figment of my imagination. So the truth is with anything that we deal with in life, we have to make decisions. We are struggling to try and understand what really is going on and what are the consequences of it. And that really is a Jewish model. Kadosh Baruch Hu when he gave miracles, okay, he gave miracles in a world where there was a different type of structure. There were Nisim Galuyim, there were open miracles in the time of the first Beis Mikdash. Clearly, what do you mean you don't believe in God? Okay? If you think about this, I mean, it's the most remarkable statement. It's really understand this. Explain, Alex, you asked a question before. Here's something that's mind-boggling. If you think in terms of understanding what really is going on here. Achav is at Har Carmel. He sees Eliyahu and Navi do the great miracle of Har Carmel, right? Okay, the Nevi'ei Baal, the Kohenei Baal, the Baal guys, the idolaters are on one side, Eliyahu's over here. He says, whoever, we're not going to light a fire, and whoever the fire lights, automatically from, we know that that's the real deity. So the Baal guys, he says, you guys can go first. So the Baal guys are dancing up a storm. They're doing everything they can. Okay. The fact, Alex, I'll get to your question in a sec. Okay. The fact is that you go through these things and so forth and so forth, and you analyze it, and so you go through this, and they're dancing and singing, they're doing anything, and Eliyahu's just watching on the side and say, you guys finished yet? No fire, of course. Are you guys ready? And they're lacerating themselves. The Baal guys, Eliyahu's just said, "Are you guys finished?" So finally, okay, they say, "Okay, it's your turn." They don't think anything's happening. What does Eliyahu do? He goes over and gets some water. He douses all the wood on the altar with water. Just totally drenches them. Okay, all covered with water. This wood, if you threw a match on it, if you threw a torch on it, wouldn't light. Right? And then he says, okay, Kosh Baruch Hu, light my fire. It's there. The fire is lit and it's unbelievable. Achav goes crazy. Achav says, well, the whole people yell out, Hashem Hu Elokim. For the statements we say at the end of Yom Kippur, that's what they said there. Hashem Hu Elokim. And then Eliyahu goes and kills all the Kohenei Baal. Just wipes them out. And the people are absolutely astonished. Achav goes back to Jezebel. He's sitting there and he's totally astonished by this. The whole nation says, Hashem Hu Elokim. God is God. Right? Hashem, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, is God. Goes back over there and he says, and tells Jezebel, this remarkable thing happened. What does Jezebel do? What does Jezebel do? It's unbelievable. She calls a messenger together and she writes a note. Take this to Eliyahu. What does the note say? By this time, the same way you killed the Nevi'ei Baal, you killed the prophets of the Baal, by this time tomorrow you're going to be dead. I'm taking care of you the same way you took care of my prophets. What? You didn't get the message? What are you talking about? And what does Eliyahu do? Eliyahu packs it to Yehuda because he's afraid of Jezebel. Fascinating. But the fact is, it's like Achav's right there. Comes back to Jezebel. Well, Jezebel didn't believe her husband. Everyone's coming home and saying, "Hey, this is what happened." Fact of the matter is, if you can't understand that, what was it? Is that we don't understand the challenge of what they were talking about, which leads to Alex's question. Well, are we supposed to rationally analyze whether the Exodus really happened, for example? I mean, isn't it an example of belief? You know what the question is? How do you know truth? Yes, you're supposed to rationally analyze whether the Exodus happened or not. Of course you're supposed to do it. What do you mean it's belief? What's belief? What does it mean? I just believe it? So the Rambam says, we have a tradition. Now, why do you listen to the people of the tradition? You know, my argument is interesting. Freud makes a statement that in his arguments against religion, he basically says one of the arguments of religion is tradition. He said our forefathers knew things and so forth and so forth. And he looks at it and says, why would basically these people back there, they weren't as smart as us, so do it. What's one of the reasons I accept the Yetzias Mitzrayim? Because Chazal did. And Chazal, the Jewish sages, have convinced me of their genius. Convince me of their critical thinking. So if Rabbi Akiva believed in Yetzias Mitzrayim, that's a pretty good that's a pretty good argument for me. Now, is it proven? No. But the fact that this has been an accepted idea by critical thinkers, not by people running around believing any belief out there, but by critical thinkers. Now, the Kuzari then throws in the idea a few hundred years later, but the fact is he's presenting the idea, what is belief? Belief is some aspect of an intuitive knowledge, which also rationalism is based on also. I mean, rationalism also has intuitive knowledge, the a prioris. Right? We don't have a proof that two parallel lives will not meet. The fact is that was the whole problem with the British philosophers now. Every rationalist understands you can't totally defend everything with logic. There has to be some starting points. The point is we have to struggle with it. We have to work with these ideas. Okay? So, now, Alex says, well, let's assume today in the scientific-oriented world, scientists would prove to the satisfaction of all the sciences that Moses never existed. As a religious person, would my reaction be like that of Jezebel? I think it would be. That's not the same case. It's not the same case over here, Alex. We're not saying all the scientists prove this and all. We're saying that all the scientists prove that God exists, that Moses is the prophet of God. Everything proves it. Okay? And one guy is saying, no, I don't accept it. See, what we're doing is we're compartmentalize the way we analyze truth, how we struggle with ideas. Okay? Okay? The fact is, what's the definition of proof? There's not just rational proof. You know, it's just I was talking to my daughter tonight, and I was saying, you know something? I really, one of the things that always bothers me is how people try to defend Torah in different systems. Okay? Pursuant to the north, the world has a specific way of thinking, and then people try and say, and Torah works this way. Let me give you an example. People trying to argue that the observance of the laws of Nida will make sense to someone who doesn't even believe it comes from God. So people are trying to argue Nida is an excellent concept if you want to have a good marriage. Okay, it's an excellent observance of wanting a good marriage, right? And I've read some books where they talk about a person who's totally non-observant but observes the laws of Nida. Okay? I look at it and say, what are you talking about? Okay? I know a lot of people who observe the laws of Nida who basically say that Nida is a challenge to their marriage. It's very, very difficult. Okay, I had one woman call me who already got into menopause and was being prescribed something from her doctor that would bring about her periods again, and she basically said, I gotta find. Basically, when I see periods, not full period, she actually saw blood like 3 hours because of this pill she was taking. There was a little bit of bleeding, and she basically said, you gotta do something for me. I don't want to go through this Nida thing, because when I hit menopause, my marriage started becoming really good. I found that Nida was very difficult. A lot of people told me that. It's a challenge. Some people may work, some people it's a challenge. Why do we do it? Because the Kodesh Baruch Hu said it. But everyone goes out there and says, gee, I can prove it according to any system. Let me put it another way. If a woman 35 years old comes up to me and says, a non-religious woman, I'm not saying like that, and says, listen, isn't it great, she comes up to me and says, she's a virgin. Right? Doesn't believe in God. She comes up to me and says a virgin. I would look at her and say, gee whiz, I wonder what's your psychological issue. Because if the Torah tells you can't do it, I understand that. But if the Torah doesn't tell you not to do it, why aren't you doing it? So the point is that there are concepts over here. The Torah creates a different conceptual basis. Okay? Now, what I'm trying to say is that so much of thought is trying to understand all these different pools. Okay? Okay, when you see one proof, when I talk about the story with the Zevel, it was a pretty strong proof that everyone saw over there. All these people who were previously Baalites following that religion said, "Gee, we're wrong. That's it." Except for the Zevel says, "I'm not buying it." Point is you struggle with concepts and so forth and so forth. This is what you're talking about here. So the point is what are we supposed to do? So there is rationalism, and there's this concept of what is belief. There's listening to tradition, especially the people of the Bali Masorah are critical thinkers, people who guide that tradition. The bottom line is that when I look at the world today and I see that there's issues, we talk about Bechira, we're really talking about this struggle that God has given us in this world of trying to understand this world and deal with this world. And that struggle is trying to understand it and trying to understand our own, how we know things and our rationalism. And we have to use our rationalism against our intuition. But there is some value to our intuition as well, which I use as this concept of belief. And there is aspects of truth from here and truth from there, and we struggle with these things. That is our model. And the fact is, on that struggling, who knows if we're being honest in our evaluation? Only God. Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Who knows? How do I know how much I'm being affected by my own subjectivity, or my own desire for a certain outcome? But the fact is, it's a constant struggle, and that's why Torah is so intense and so full and so thick. But the point is, it's not Torah. I was just talking to someone today, and someone gave him an answer about Judaism, and let's say person A and person B. Okay, we'll call them Tom and Jerry. Okay, so Tom makes a statement to Jerry, and Jerry says, "If that's true, that's it. I'm walking out of this religion. That's so ridiculous. I'm not doing anything. I'm just walking away." And Tom's insistent, "No, this is the truth. The truth." So this guy, Jerry, comes and talks to me. He says, "Tom told me this thing. It's ridiculous. Where do you get it from?" So what do I say to Jerry? I said, "The truth is, Jerry, as I understand your question, it's actually a big machlokas. Okay, there are shitas that there are some positions that agree with Tom, but a lot of positions agree with you also, Jerry. And they understand Torah. They understand this concept in Torah a certain way." And I explained to him and said, "Oh, that makes sense to me, right?" Okay, this actually happened yesterday. Okay, that basically Jerry was very, very upset because Tom said the Torah, and then he had problems with it and issues with it and struggles with it and so forth and so forth. And then he came to me. I said, "Well, actually, spectrum of opinion, and your opinion is found within a certain place within Torah." Okay. And I already said, so I was upset about it. I said, the problem is that Tom didn't present the spectrum. That drives me crazy when someone says, "Here's the only way within Torah," right? And doesn't expect the spectrum, but would respect the challenge that Jerry was going through. So I said, Jerry went back to Tom and told Tom this, and then Jerry came to hear speaking to Jerry today, and he said to me, "Tom called this apologetics," and I just hit the roof. Because there's a statement in Torah, and I analyze it, and I work it through, because I have questions, and I have thoughts, and I have ideas, okay? That new conclusion is apologetics, so I just hit the roof. And I said, "You know something? That's great. That's what the Christians, and the Karaites, and the Sadducees used to say about Chazal. Exactly that. Apologetics. Okay? Classic example. It says in the Chumash, the words are very clear cut. Moshe took a Kishite woman. Okay? That Miriam was speaking about the Kishite woman that Moshe took. The Cushite woman that Moshe took. It means the black woman Moshe took. So I remember reading some literature, some guy, and at first I said, "What?" This guy was talking about Moses' black concubine. I said, "Where did you get this from?" And it dawned on me. That's what the simple verse says. Okay? Oh, So what did Chazal say? Chazal says it doesn't mean that. Really what Moshe did was separate from Tzipora. Okay? He totally separated from his wife, and she was referred to as a Kushite woman because she was so beautiful. Okay? That's what Rashi says. That's Chazal's classic understanding of the verse. Okay? So I can imagine. I go back to some guy and say, "Oh, you think it's about a black concubine that he took this?" No, that's not what the verse says. Verse means. What the verse means is that Moshe separated from his beautiful wife. Right? You know what someone would say to me? That's apologetics. You're doing apologetics. You don't want to say that Moses took a second woman, a black woman, right? You think that would take away from our understanding of Moses' holiness, so that you came up with this apologetics to try and read the verse somewhere else. No. That is wrong. Okay? Yeah, Alex says it's a reasonable argument. Yes, I think it's a reasonable argument. It's exactly right. That's what. Okay, and that's exactly it. It is a reasonable argument. So I basically have to say, wait a second. I'm obviously not doing it for apologetics. It's obviously further. So therefore, if you look further into the analysis, why is the verse written that way? And you see much more that there actually are a couple Rishonim who actually say, we know what Chazal says, but this is still what the verse says. It's a couple Rishonim who basically said, listen, the basic shot in the verse is they take it, and then there's Ibn Kaspi. Ibn Kaspi? Oh, I think it's the Ibn Kaspi who says, and what's the idea behind it? Because we have a concept that says that the greater the person, the greater is Yetzer Hara. Moshe was so great that he must have had a great Yetzer Hara, therefore he needed a second woman. And there was this really a statement that trying to work these things out. The fact of the matter is that there's such a tremendous depth because they're such challenging. But the point is I think it's a reasonable argument, and the fact is the fact is that there are times where I have to go literally, and there's times I have to go with analysis, and there's times like that, and the fact is I can hear this, but when a person comes up to me and says that, hey, what this guy Jerry was saying is apologetics because it's not according to the simple reading, well, guess what? So much of Judaism is not according to the simple reading. So much of Torah is not because man is supposed to think. Why is man supposed to think? Because man's analysis is very, very difficult. He's got intuitive aspects. He's got logical aspects. He's got a prioris and analysis and stuff like that. It's difficult. And that's the nature of Bechira. Not because, I have free choice between the evil drive and the good drive. The nature of Bechira is trying to join those two parts of my existence and figure out some way to become a collective whole, both as a Tzelem Elokim, as an Eved Hashem, both as created in the divine image and still a servant of God. That is the challenge of existence. And belief is one of those aspects that's under the microscope. Someone has to discern truth. Okay? You have to figure out truth. The fact of the matter is for something to be believable, Nochai Dave says, something to be believable, to concede to a questionable idea, one needs to discern truth. The fact is that someone has a methodology of determining truth, and the fact is that it's a questionable idea, so how are you making a decision? And sometimes we have some kind of shikal adas, is a classic term for it, some measurement. We have some rational possibilities, which one is the right one? Knowledge is not an easy thing for us to figure out. And it's all part of the struggle that we have in existence. And it's under that model, a person who understands that challenge, sometimes make right decisions, sometimes wrong decisions, but the fact of the matter is that you have to understand that there's some validity to the challenge. That's what it's about. That's a lot of what it's about.